Well, tonight we're going to do our final two lessons on our equation solving stuff. This will take us all the way through, most specifically, the Math 053, Chapter 3. But as we've been saying, also a little gap in the ordering of the Camosun math courses. You actually need to have some basic equation solving already in Math 052, especially in actually in all three chapters, to be honest, chapter 3, 4, and 5. Equation solving, you actually are solving basic equations in all three of those chapters, and in Math 038 as well. Some very basic equation solving comes up as well. If you are in a Math 02 level course, again, you will see some similar things around perimeters and areas that you are working on in almost all of those courses, whether it's whole numbers, decimals, fractions, or whatever. It's just that what we're going to be doing today is not something you're going to have to do in an O2 level course where we're going to take those formulas and we're going to work backwards in them. Again, if you've been following along the equation solving stuff on these videos and you want to, then you are by all means welcome to watch this as a little preview of what's coming once you get to the 05 level courses. Okay, so, whoops. There we go. All right, so on Monday we did part 1 of working with formulas. Today we're going to do parts 2 and 3. So here in part 2, we're going to remind ourselves that what we did last time was we were always given all the information on the right-hand side of the equation. So here's an example from what we did last time. And reminding us of the steps we followed. We first always write the equation. We're still going to do that today. Second, we sub in everything that we know. So in this case, we put in the value of pi, which they don't have to tell us in the question. You can just use 3.14, but often I have been listing it there as well, just so I can do my color matching. And we know the radius is 21 centimeters. So again, all the values, this is like the questions we did before, where all the values we are given are on the right-hand side. And then, because the C is already by itself, C for circumference of the circle, we can just work out that right-hand side of the equation. That's a multiplication. We now are allowed calculators for this once we're into this chapter in the course. So we're just going to go 2 times 3.14 times 21 on our calculator and get 131.88 centimeters. We would look back and see, does it tell us how many decimal places to put our answer to? No, it doesn't. But sometimes it'll certainly say round it to the nearest tenth or round it to the nearest whole number or to the hundredth or whatever it might ask, or to 2 decimal places maybe it might say. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it like that, 131.88 centimeters. So that's what we already know how to do. So what happens if instead of the thing that you don't know what happens if instead the thing you don't know and want to find isn't the one that is already by itself? What if the thing you want to find has other stuff with it on its side of the equal sign? So let's look at that same exact formula, circumference of a circle equals 2 pi r. But now read this question. They want us to find the radius. Notice the radius is over here on the right-hand side. And they give us their circumference. So, same steps, write the formula, C equals 2 pi r, plug in all the values that you know. In this case, the circumference, 18.84, on the left is the known value. And of course, pi, 3.14, is over on the right there. And again, you see the thing that we want to find is that r that's by itself. Step 3, now we forget all about circles, we forget about circumferences, we forget about radiuses and pi. We just solve that equation using the equation solving skills that we have been practicing now for the last couple weeks. So when I look at that, I think there's always more than one way to go on any math question. I think the simplest for me is I'd look and I'd say, you know what, look at that 2 times 3.14. Let's simplify that. And you can pick up your calculator if you want, or that's actually a pretty easy one you might even be able to do in your head. 3 doubles, 1 doubles, and 4 doubles, 6.28. Either way. And now we have what looks just like our regular old one-step equation. We want to get the r by itself. The r is not by itself right now because it is being multiplied by 6.28. So we divide both sides by 6.28 to get rid of that, because it'll cancel out like so, right? Achieving our goal, which is getting the r by itself, isolated. And whatever we do to one side, we had to do to the other. So over on the left, we divide 18.84 divided by 6.28. And I built this one nice and easy, so the answer happens to be a whole number. The radius of that circle is 3. I should have said inches. Yeah, there we go. The radius is 3 inches. Okay, so there's our first really simple work backwards in a formula question. And you see the setup is identical to what we already did. Write the formula, sub in the values. The only thing that changes now is, our variable isn't by itself, so we do all of our equation solving stuff to make the variable by itself, and then we have our answer. So let's look at another one. The area of a triangle given by A equals 1/2 BH. I'm going to say again, even though I said it in the last video, you do not need to memorize these formulas in any of the courses. In 052 and 038, you're given a formula sheet for all of the geometry stuff. In 053, there isn't a specific geometry chapter, but anytime they ask you to work with a formula, they will tell you in the question what the formula is, like this one does. So we know the formula for the area here, 1/2 base height, where b is the base of the triangle and h is the height. Determine the base of a triangle that has an area of 40 square millimeters. And we talked last time about the fact that this millimeters squared is just shorthand for square millimeters. That little 2 there does not mean you square anything. Don't go 40 squared, right? That is, the little 2 is just part of the units. It tells us how many little teeny square millimeters could fit into this triangle shape. Okay, and the height is 7 millimeters. Give your answer to 2 decimal places. So step 1, write the formula. A equals 1/2 BH. Step 2, sub in everything that we know. So let's see, we've been given the area this time is 40. They're in red. And we've been given the height is 7. They're in blue. And the b, we don't know, but we want to find. So 40 equals 1/2 times b times 7. Again, there's multiple ways you could go. If you look at that and you see that you want to multiply both sides by 2 first, that is actually a great way to go as well. That's not what I'm going to do here, but that is actually probably an even better way to go than what I'm going to do here. What I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you this because it definitely helps in some other questions, is I'm going to remind myself that 1/2 times b times 7, when I'm multiplying 3 things, remember the order I do them in doesn't actually matter. So I'm just going to rearrange that so it's 1/2 times 7 times b. And you wouldn't even need to write that step. You can just do that in your head if it makes sense to you. And the reason I did that is now I'm going to go 1/2 times 7. 1 divided by 2 times 7. There we go. That's what you're going to type into your calculator if you're doing this on your calculator. And that turns into 3.5. And you can see now maybe why I did that, because this turns this just into a quick one-step equation now. I got a b that's being multiplied by 3.5. How do I get rid of multiplied by 3.5? I do the opposite, which is dividing by 3.5. I'm going to get there eventually. There we go. And yeah, you see I mentioned that you can probably skip that step, right? You can do the 1/2 times 7 without actually writing out this whole step of work. That would be totally fine. So I divide both sides by 3.5, which means the 3.5s cancel, leaving just a b on the right-hand side, which was the whole point, to get the b by itself. On the left-hand side, 40 divided by 3.5 is 11.42857. Go back and look for your rounding instructions. Give your answer to 2 decimal places, or it could have said to the nearest hundredth, would have been another way of saying that. So the 2, look at the next digits, an 8, so that 2 rounds up to a 3. So the base of the triangle is 11.43 millimeters. So there's another one. So just a tiny extra step in that one where we had to either rearrange or imagine rearranging, or like I said, if you would have multiplied both sides by 2 to get 80 over here, and then divided both sides by 7, you would have got the same answer as well. So in math, again, there's almost always multiple ways to go. It's just a matter of what makes the most sense to you, and definitely what's going to be the most efficient. And maybe also sometimes your math teacher might know what's coming in a future chapter or a future course and might say, yeah, that method works here, but you need to know how to do this as well. That's an important thing to be aware of. All right, let's try another one. The volume of a cylinder is given by the formula V equals pi r squared h. Okay. What is the height of a cylinder? So they are asking us to calculate the height this time, whereas last time we would have always just been calculating the volume. Given a volume of 1,200 cubic feet and a radius of 8 feet. All right, answer to 3 decimal places, sure. Step 1, write the formula. V equals pi r squared h. Especially easy in Math 053, that first step, because they're always going to give you the formula in the question, right? Unlike 052, where you're doing your volumes and areas, and you have to go seek out the correct formula off your formula sheet. Step 2, sub in the values that you know. Well, they told us the volume is 1,200. We know, even though they didn't write it down, that pi in blue is 3.14. And they have given us the radius is 8 feet. This is a pretty big cylinder, right? This is like some kind of big storage container or something like that. 8-foot radius, so it's 16 feet across. And we're going to find out how high it is, how tall it is. All right, so then we're going to solve using our equation solving. And again, whenever you see some numbers that can be worked out, I would start with that before you start moving pieces around and dividing both sides and subtracting. I would just say I got 3.14 times 8 squared. Order of operations, I need to do that 8 squared first. So 8 times 8 is 64. And now let's multiply by pi, 3.14 times 64. And there, once again, I've managed to turn this into a nice simple one-step equation. I have the h being multiplied by 200.96. How do I make that go away? By dividing by 200.96, and whatever I do to the right, I also have to do to the left. The 200.96 cancels out and leaves just an h behind, which was the whole point of doing it. And then we pick up our calculator, 1,200 divided by 200.96. We get an answer. We go back and read the rounding instructions. Give your answer to 3 decimal places. Okay, 5.971 is the 3 decimal places, or they could have said the nearest thousandth. Look at the next digit. It's smaller than 5, so that 1 stays a 1. The height is 5.971 feet. So again, maybe some kind of storage container for some kind of liquid, probably. Big cylinder, I don't know. But that would be the kind of thing we'd be looking at there. And you could fit 1,200 cubic feet of material in that. In other words, if you had boxes you could pour your liquid into that were 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot, and you could fill up 1,200 of those boxes with your gas or whatever it's being stored and pour them all in, and that's how much that cylinder would hold. Okay, we're going to give one for you to try. Perimeter of a rectangle given by P equals 2L plus 2W. And we have been asked to find the width given that the perimeter is 140. So I'm going to take a little pause and you guys give that one a try. This is a classic Math 052 Chapter 4 question for sure. And also, as we're saying, it's definitely part of Math 053 in the equation solving unit. Okay, let's take a look at this. So perimeter equals 2L plus 2W. What's our first step? We write the formula down, like so. Second step, we're going to plug in everything we know. So we have been told the perimeter on the left-hand side is 140. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. Notice how My equal signs always line up. And I know I've said this before, but I'm just going to say this again too. I like to start each line with the equal sign, put the equal sign in the middle, and then build what is on each side at that point. What else have they told us? The length is 58. Okay, so in blue there, I've replaced the L with a 58. And I can see that the one variable that's left that I don't know that I'm trying to find is the width. So use equation solving. So again, we've been seeing that whenever you have these multiplications popping up there, you want to do those first. 2 times 58, you get 116. And whereas all the other ones turned into a one-step equation where we just had to divide, you can see this one has turned into our standard two-step equation where we have a piece here with the variable that we're going to deal with last, and we have a constant term that we know we have to deal with first, and we're going to remind ourselves that we are lazy, and so we did not write a positive sign in front of the 116, but we know it is there, right? That 116 is being added. And I'm just recapping to what we talked about when we were going through our review stuff. Our new way of thinking about this is not that adding is something you do between two things, but rather that every term has either a plus or minus in front of it telling you whether it's going to the right or the left. So this one here, we have an added 116 and an added 2w is how you want to think about that. What do we do with an added 116 on the right? We turn it into a subtracted 116 on the left, knowing in the back of our head that what we really just did actually is subtracted 116 from both sides, which made this one go away. So 140 minus 116 is 24. Now we got to get the w by itself. It's currently being multiplied by a 2, so we divide both sides by 2. Because they cancel, making the w by itself, which was the whole point. And on the left, because we have to do the same thing to both sides, 24 divided by 2 is 12. Go back, look for units. We are in centimeters, so the width is 12 centimeters. And they didn't give any rounding instructions, probably because they knew the answer happens to turn out to a whole number on this question. All right, so let's keep going. What do we got now? We got another cylinder, but now we're talking not about volume, we're talking about surface area. And there is our surface area formula, 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Find the height of a cylinder, so that's what we're looking for this time. So we're not just looking for the area, we will be given the area, diameter of 10 and surface area of 414.48. This right here should sound off alarm bells for you because they've given us the diameter, but we know the formula needs the radius. So the first thing we're going to do is divide that in half. Yeah, there we go. Got it already there. So diameter of 10 means the radius is 5. So step 1, write the formula. Step 2, let's plug everything in. This is a bit of a bigger one. We've been told the area in red, 414.48. We, of course, know pi, and we know that the radius is 5. And notice that both of those things occur twice, and that's okay. There we got pi in purple and our radius in blue, and also in this term, pi in purple and the radius in blue. Okay, then we're going to solve this with equation solving. And again, we have all these numbers being multiplied in these two spots here. So let's deal with that first. Before anything, order of operations, I see a power there, 5 squared. So 5 times 5 is 25. And now I can take each of those. Do I do it? Yeah, I do it in pieces. The left-hand side hasn't changed yet, but I'm going to multiply 2 times 3.14 times 25. That turns out to be exactly 157. And 2 times 3.14 times 5 turns out to be 31.4, because 2 times 5 is 10, right? So that's just kind of a little fluke of how the numbers worked there. And what I now have, if you look carefully, is I once again have a two-step equation. I have my term over here. I'm trying to get the h by itself. There's a term with my h in it, and there is a constant term there. And then, of course, there's the other side of the equation. So I remind myself once again that that 157 there is actually being added on the left-hand side. I'm just too lazy to write the plus sign. And what do I do with 157 that's being added on the right? I turn it into 157 being subtracted on the left, knowing that I really just subtracted 157 from both sides. Work out the left side, 414.48 minus 157. And now all that's left with the h over here on the right-hand side is just this multiplied 31.4. So I divide both sides by 31.4. I think I'm going to run out of room here soon. They cancel out. The whole point being that now the h is by itself on the right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, I have to do the same thing. So I divide those two numbers, and I get 8.2. The height of the cylinder is 8.2 inches. So that was a bit of a bigger one. I wanted to show you that these can turn into more complicated equations than ones where you just quickly divide by something. So this one turned, you had quite a bit of working out of these coefficients and constant numbers here, the 157 and the 31.4. Then you had a standard two-step equation where you subtract something away and then divide. Okay, this right here is, let's say it's one of the questions that causes the most trouble to 052 students in Chapter 4. And it is also, this for 053 students, this really combines this working with formulas along with what we did last time where we were solving word problems, because they've set this up. It might not initially look any different than the one we already did, but it is actually quite different. And the reason is, look carefully, you do not know the length or the width. Don't get caught only reading half of a sentence here. It might look like it says the length of a rectangle is 6 centimeters. No, read the whole sentence. The length of the rectangle is 6 centimeters more than the width. We don't know the length and we don't know the width, and we've been asked to find both. That's two different variables. We know we can only solve an equation with one variable, so we're going to have to find a way around that. And we've been told the perimeter is 44. And normally I would also give you the perimeter equation, but I think I just forgot to here. Again, you won't need to memorize that. So step 1, write down your formula. Now, step 2 is sub in values, but all we know is the 44. And so you can see what we were talking about. We don't know L, we don't know W, and they're both in the same equation. Now is when we have to go grab this other piece of information. And this is a really common scenario in math and science at all levels. Situations like this come up. So what we know is that the length is 6 centimeters more than the width. We can write that in math. The length is the width plus 6, right? 6 centimeters more than the width. And what we can do with that, this is technically called substitution. What we can do with that is we can look over at the equation, and where we see that L, we can say, hey, I can actually replace that L with W plus 6, because L is W plus 6, like so. And just like that, voila, we now only have one unknown variable in the equation. We still don't know the length, but we can figure that out at the end because we know it's going to be the width plus 6, right? We know it's 6 more than the width. So now we can use our equation to find the width because we have replaced that L with W plus 6, making only one variable. And well, the equations are getting more and more complicated, but nothing that we haven't seen yet, right? We know what to do here. We got to expand those brackets first, like so. So on the left, we still have 44. On the right, we have 2 times W plus 2 times 6 is 12. And you see, as we move on, I do things faster, right? That when we first learn a concept, I really slow it down, but you don't want to be doing that every time. You want to be able to quickly multiply that 2 through that bracket, get 2W plus 12. And of course, we still also have another plus 2W at the end. Okay, so there we have expanded the bracket, which is what we know the first thing we have to do when we have an equation with brackets. What do we do next? You might remember we collect together our like terms. Oh, it looks like I'm going to do the 12 first. That's also okay. I got an added 12 on the right. It's the only piece that doesn't have a W in it. So I decided to do this first this time and made that added 12 on the right into a subtracted 12 on the left. You could have also first combined the 2W plus 2W into 4W and then gone from there. 44 minus 12 is 32. And now I think I am going to do this now. 2W plus 2W becomes 4W. Either way, you'll get the same thing, whether you combine first or subtract first, or if you're really on the ball, do them both at the same time. Subtract the 12 over and combine the two W's. This step right here is absolutely a skippable step, right? If you look at the step right above it, you just subtract the 12 over to the left and you get 32. And you combine the 2W and 2W and you get 4W all in one step. All right, now all we got to do to get the W isolated by itself is divide by 4. Whatever we do to one side, we also do to the other. The 4's cancel, which of course was the whole point, because now W is by itself. And on the left, 32 divided by 4 is 8. Okay, don't stop. It's very tempting to finish solving your equation and say, oh, good, and move on to the next question. But actually, we're only halfway. Well, we're more than halfway, but we've only got one of the two pieces. They want us to find the length and the width. So far, we've found the width. How do we find the length? Well, we just go back over here to this relationship that we used, that the length is the width plus 6. So the length is 8 plus 6, which is 14.